as I'm walking out of the room to go into the bathroom, I hear my name called. And I was like, whoa, like, what just happened? And sure enough, they picked me with the next pick. I got pulled during a no-hitter. My first start in 2019 through 6 1/3 innings. This was like our moment where we were like, this is bad. The nurse who originally took me in came by the room and said, hey, just want you guys to know, like, we're praying for you. You're going to get through this. And I looked at Devin and I was like, what are they talking about? It was about a pineapple-sized tumor sitting in my chest. They said you were flipping the coin every time you got your heart rate above baseline that you were going to die.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another podcast episode from Tread Athletics. My name's Turner Givens. I'm with my friend David Hess here out of Greenville, South Carolina, originally out of Florida, correct?
Yeah, born in Florida, grew up in Tennessee, so kind of claim that a little bit more.
You were our USA representative for Pro Day.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of candidates, so I was kind of surprised to see myself as the choice there, but that was cool.
Awesome. Well, I mean, we got a lot of stuff to go through. You're probably one of our most tenured, not athletes, but like pitchers that we've had on the podcast. So we got a lot of history. I mean, it goes back to your college playing career started in 2012.
Yeah.
I don't think we've had anybody, maybe my producers can tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've had anybody that was playing college baseball in 2012 that we've had on the podcast, other than coaches like STEM.
Yeah. I'll be the token old head, I guess.
Yeah, for now. And you're still not old.
In baseball years, I think I am. But in real life years, I don't know.
You start aging in baseball years, like 28 is when people consider you to be old.
Yeah,
so.
That's no, it was fun, though. That graduated high school in 2011, so feels weird that it's been, I guess, 15 years.
Yeah, I think I started high school in 2011 probably. So maybe a little bit after. Yeah, I don't know. We're not that far off.
No.
So take me through, obviously, it was 3 years at Tennessee Tech, right?
Mm-hmm.
Take me through kind of that process, and obviously when you got drafted, Chase Cunningham actually brought up the fact that y'all played against each other because he went to Belmont, and I don't know if you remember playing against him.
I remember the name, briefly remember him. Belmont was kind of like our big rival. They actually came into our conference, I think it was my junior year, and I had some good friends growing up in Tullahoma, about an hour south of there. I knew the area well, knew a lot of guys that went to play there, so it was kind of a fun rivalry. No, it was cool, though. So originally I had actually committed to go to Tennessee. I committed over the summer going into my senior year of high school. Some stuff just didn't quite work out. There was a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff, and so I actually decommitted from there. And at that point, everybody had pretty much filled up their rosters for the fall, and so I was trying to figure out where I was going to go. And ended up at Tennessee Tech. I had some other places on the table, but actually Belmont was one of the places I went to check out. But Tech was the landing spot. It was cool. I really enjoyed my time there. I feel like I got a lot better. I needed just to mature a little bit, probably more physically, I would say, than anything else, because I was young in high school. I graduated when I was 17, so I kind of needed a little bit more time as far as like draft outlook and everything to hopefully grow, get stronger, and all that stuff. And
was draft on the table, like in your head? Was the draft on the table going into college? Was that a goal? A little bit.
I knew that's what I was working toward. At that point, I think that was when they still had like 50 rounds, and so I was like, maybe I'll just be like,
shot then.
The 49th rounder or something. I don't know. But out of high school, I knew I think I was about the same height, like 6'1", 6'2", like 180 pounds. So I was a lot skinnier than I am now. Didn't throw as hard, and I just knew that was going to take some time to progress. I knew off-speed stuff wasn't where it needed to be, and pretty quickly on in college, my freshman year, I actually was our Sunday starter. Then moved into kind of like a Friday, Saturday role my sophomore year. Didn't do great to start that year, so I got bumped to the bullpen for a little bit, then worked my way back in, and then I was our Friday starter my junior year. So it was a pretty steady progression as I went, but that's kind of how it all came together, and then we did get to that goal of getting drafted.
Did you feel like, so going from being committed to Tennessee to then decommitting and going to Tennessee Tech, looking back on it now, obviously you probably have a much more mature kind of opinion on that decision. In the moment, though, did you feel like you were taking a step back? Did you feel like that was like, were you like, it was almost like a negative?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because Tennessee Tech had a really good program at that time, so it was no knock at all on them. But when you're talking about an SEC, notable name like Tennessee, and then a Ohio Valley Conference powerhouse that was Tennessee Tech, it doesn't carry quite the same weight. So that was a really hard decision in the moment, because I grew up a Tennessee fan.
Yeah.
It was always either Tennessee or Vandy kind of on the forefront of everybody's mind. And that was when, Vandy was, king of the castle at that time. They were number one every single year, winning national championships. And so I knew that was going to be a little tougher. But when I decommitted, it was a big choice because it was trying to take as much emotion out of everything to make as educated and mature of a decision as possible for what would be better for me going forward. And in hindsight, it was the right decision for me. And I know that may not be the case for everybody. And especially, as a 16, 17-year-old kid, it kind of felt like your dreams were kind of crushed a little bit. But as we've kind of seen, a lot of stuff in the last few years, like, it doesn't always go the way that you expect, but you get to the place you're supposed to be in the end.
100%. Yeah, I think with that move, a lot of guys don't realize, and obviously the landscape of college baseball is completely different than when you were playing.
Yeah.
But I think a big piece of that is that it gave you an opportunity to play early on, and a lot of guys don't think about it that way.
For sure.
Not playing your first year, yes, red shirting or gray shirting, and actually taking your development seriously is a big piece, but what are the percentages of guys that actually do that instead of going to a school where they can get innings? And now we know guys can transfer whenever they want, but going to get innings that early and learning how to pitch and then also kind of like growing into who you ended up being, I think is a big piece. So do you feel like it was super beneficial that you were able to compete for a role like right out of the gate?
Without a doubt.
Okay.
Without a doubt. And I personally, even now, look at it, I would encourage guys, if possible, go get the innings over a red shirt, because getting on the field, getting in-game experience, and even what you said, like competing in the fall for a spot, whether it be out of the bullpen and the rotation, that's so much different than the development you're going to get red shirting. Now, some guys, that is a good route for them. For me, I always think if an opportunity to compete is on the table, I think that's going to be hard to pass up and hard to beat, even if it means exactly what you said, going to a smaller school, or I don't want to say a stepping stone necessarily, but the transfer system now is so much different that everything is year to year. It kind of feels like pro ball in a lot of ways, because between NIL and the ability to kind of choose where you want to be year to year, it's a totally different system than when I was, back in the Stone Ages when I was playing.
Yeah, I think guys need to go into the fall. I think the fall is super important. They may have already been told or have this idea instilled in them that they're going to redshirt most likely. But I think going into the fall and still trying to compete for a job it kind of sets you up for the future. If you go in with the expectation of like, this fall doesn't matter, they already told me I'm going to redshirt, or I really don't have a shot to get innings. Now you're taking a back seat, and you're going to see that development kind of, not just development skill-wise, but just the competitiveness start to decline a little bit. But going in with the expectation that you have a chance to compete for a spot, it's almost like that hierarchy of college baseball. Of as a freshman, you shouldn't expect to get innings.
No,
but doing so sets you up to have a ton of success. Obviously, I didn't play at the highest level that you did, but as a freshman in college, I was not expecting a role, but I was like, I like to compete. I like to play baseball. My goal is not to just sit around and watch other people play.
Yeah.
So,
and that tells a lot of you figure out a lot about yourself in that moment too. Like it's what are you going to do when, exactly what you're saying, when it doesn't look like maybe the odds are stacked against me or there's not as much of an opportunity, but here I am. A lot of, it's easy to kind of cave into that and just kind of succumb, I guess, to, all right, I'll take the red shirt. I'll just kind of, not focus on baseball as much as just the other stuff. Like maybe I'll knock out a harder course load or something to challenge yourself during that time really is important, because it shows where you're at from that competitive nature. And if you're not where you want to be, you got to find a way to challenge yourself and get to that place that you need to do to have success.
100%. So when did you start to really feel like the professional baseball and the draft was like a real possibility?
Yeah. So I've told this story to a couple people before, but there was a guy, an alumni at Tennessee Tech, that I remember my freshman year. Still don't know why he thought this, but he came up to me after watching like one of our fall scrimmages, and he said, "David, I got to be honest with you. Like, you have a real chance to be one of the highest draft picks in Tech history." And he said, "I actually think you're going to be the highest."
Was this going into your junior year? Or
this was my freshman year.
Oh, really?
And again, like I said, I was like 6'1", like 180 pounds, not throwing that hard. And so for him to say that, I was like, he must see something that I don't, because when I look in the mirror, I just see a guy that's trying to find his way into a weekend rotation. And so that always was in the back of my mind, because I was like, maybe there's something more than I recognize. But I think when it really started to kind of settle in for me was probably the fall of my junior year. I mean, I was a biochemistry major, so I was very focused on, like, if this baseball thing, probably when this baseball thing doesn't work, let's make sure I have something that I can go into that I'm going to enjoy, create a career out of. And I remember I started getting all the questionnaires and stuff, and that's when it started to cross my mind that it was a possibility. But where it really, really hit me, and I still remember exactly where I was, exactly, like, I can still envision it perfectly. There was a scout with the Padres who came and sat down and had lunch with me. And we're in the middle of, like, not the cafeteria, but just kind of like a little restaurant area there. And, I mean, students walking around just in between classes. And he's talking about, like, yeah, when, after the draft, we'd really like to get you out to San Diego to do this and do that. And that conversation was kind of eye-opening for me, because I started thinking outside of this, Tennessee Tech campus, grew up in a small town in Tennessee. I started thinking that this could be a bigger scale than maybe I recognized. And then it really solidified as we went through the spring, and, scouts start to call you, season's unfolding. I was throwing pretty well. They start to ask you, hey, what's your number? And I was like, I have no idea. And so I sat down with my coach, started going through everything with him about what I should tell scouts and kind of approaching that. And so it just became more and more in focus for me. And I heard anything from, you could be a third-round pick, you could be a 30th round pick. Like, we have no idea. And anybody that's been through the draft knows somebody that's been through the draft. Nobody has any idea.
Yeah. And you didn't have an advisor at this point?
I had just – so the back end of the spring, he's my agent now, but at the time was an advisor, and I've had him through the whole thing. And
awesome.
He was kind of echoing some of this same stuff. Like, hey, like, I think you're going to be more on the high end, but we don't know. I'm hearing a lot of different things, because it's harder to evaluate based on competition level at, like I said, the OVC, strong conference, not the same as the SEC, ACC, where, you're seeing some of these higher end draft picks, and how did this guy stack up against this guy this hitter is going to be in the second round. They faced each other. What did we see? It's a little bit different, evaluation methods, I guess, when you're at some of the smaller programs.
Yeah.
So ultimately, it worked out pretty well. I think that as it came more into focus, the biggest thing that I realized is pressure comes with that, and you have to find a way to keep that pressure off of you, because ultimately you get to play baseball. You're like regardless, and I'm still telling this to guys, that I'm coaching right now that I know who are going into these same positions. Like, enjoy it right now before it's a job, because it's never going to be as fun as it is right now. Even if you're playing at the highest level, it gets to be really fun, but the pressure just continues to build. And good outings feel way better, but bad outings also feel way worse. So the ability to go and just play baseball for fun was something down that stretch that I tried to keep focus on.
Yeah, that's something that's hard to get across with not just players but also guys getting into coaching is when you start to get paid for something that you really enjoy doing as a hobby. And really, baseball was a hobby for everyone. Growing up, it was not a job. You were just out there to have fun. How did you balance before you got paid to play baseball, how did you balance the pressure going in that junior season of like, okay, I know I can get drafted, but I also got to go perform? Because there's a lot of guys that fall apart when they have that pressure on them. What exactly did you do?
I think something that really helped me was, I guess the best way to describe it is compartmentalizing. Like when it's time to play baseball, when it's time to work, hit it hard. But when it's time to go hang out with friends or play some video games or read a book or whatever it is that you go walk in a park, like whatever it is that you need to do to disconnect and relax, be in on that time, because you just can only handle so much.
Yeah.
If you're constantly walking around with stress and weight and pressure, you're going to break at some point. Like people can bend to a certain point, but you have to give a little bit of relief and a little bit of a break. And that's what worked for me. I figured out, school is probably not the best release, like when you're in college and high school, but finding something that gives you a little bit of a window to where you can just have fun. Whatever that looks like. Everybody's a little bit different, and finding that thing and then just committing wherever you're at, like be where your feet are. And if that means it's time for baseball, like I said, get after it, work hard. If that means it's time to hang out with family, enjoy that as much as you can. Just try to disconnect and give yourself a minute to breathe, no matter where you're at.
Yeah, I think you're in like the gray area when you're possibly going to get drafted. You still have to be somewhat professional in your approach, but you're also still a kid. Like a lot of these guys, you're probably 20 during the season, right? A lot of guys are in that same boat, and then you got more guys getting drafted out of high school, and it's like they're taking things almost too seriously.
For sure.
Yes, there's a time and place to get after it and making sure that our routine and our regimen is dialed, but to try to treat your life as a professional at 20 years old is very difficult and almost too much at that point. For sure. Be a kid, enjoy being a kid. You're not an adult until, we talked about obviously the baseball ages you, but it takes a little while to get into that. So
and I think to that extent, sometimes less is more. Yeah. Like I think two things: less is more, and you have to disconnect. You have to trust the work that you're putting into, and that means having a plan, executing that plan. But you see guys like from a hitter standpoint, pitchers you can overthrow and do all that. Hitters could spend 5 hours hitting in the cage, and at some point you lose that return on the work that you're putting in. So maybe an extra 30 minutes or an hour is good, but if you're going above and beyond, like, you might be hurting yourself more than helping. So exactly your point, like sometimes you just got to chill out a little bit.
100%. So how did it feel? How did it feel to get the call? Did you feel like, I know we already talked about, you started to get a sense that something was going to happen. Did you start to see a little bit more of like what round you're going into as you got closer to the draft, or how did that play out?
As we got closer, my advisor at the time, agent now, was pretty much saying like, hey, like first day at that time I think was first and second round, or comp round was in there, maybe third round. He said, I doubt we're going to hear your name that day. That would be really cool, but don't hold your breath. Be ready for the second day. And so as we started getting into it, my fun draft story is we were in the living room at my house. We started getting a little bit more insight. Padres ended up calling and saying, hey, I think you're on the board probably as our next pick. Everything's looking right. Numbers still good. We're in agreement. Everything lined up. So I'm thinking, here we are. I think this was the fourth round. And waiting to hear my name. Padres pick comes up. I don't even know who it was. It was somebody else though. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like I've
heard this story from so many other guys where it's like, a team called me that said, hey, we're going to pick you next. Yeah. And then nothing happens.
Yeah. And so guy calls me immediately. Same scout that I sat in that cafeteria with. And he was like, man, I have no idea what happened. I thought everybody was in agreement. I'm so sorry. And I was like, it's cool. I get it. Kind of same thing. I know the draft's crazy. Internally, I was pretty frustrated because I was just like, dang, like I really got my hopes up there. So I get up because I had to pee, and I thought that was I kind of held it in because I was like, this is it. Yep. It wasn't it, so I was like, all right, I'm going to go pee then. And as I'm walking out of the room to go into the bathroom, I hear my name called. And I was like, whoa, like, what just happened? Why did they say my name? And that's when the Orioles, like, basically came in. Like my agent said, they really didn't say too much leading up to it, but they were kind of in the mix, and they called him the pick before and said, hey, is he still good with everything? He said, yeah. And he said, all right, cool. Hung up the phone, and he was like, I don't know what to make of that. And sure enough, they picked me with the next pick. And
did he think that you were going Padres?
I think he was kind of in the same boat. I think it was, looking back at it, it was less frustrating but more confusing. Again, because nobody knows what the draft's going to look like. And, I mean, especially that's kind of that, I would say, like 4th to 8th round, which now it's a little more condensed, so it probably changes a little bit. There's so many names on the board, and maybe you thought this guy was going to be gone and now he's available, and so then you have to reevaluate, and things change very quickly. I mean, and it can be like minute to minute at that point. And so that wasn't, out of the ordinary. Like you said, there's a ton of stories like that. My 20-year-old self, couldn't see outside of what was happening to me, and so I was just like, dang, that really sucks. But it ended up working out just fine.
Did they end up sending you out somewhere that season, or did you sit out for that year, the rest of that season?
No, it was kind of a modified year. I got drafted on, I think it was a Tuesday. On Thursday, I was on a plane headed to Baltimore to go do physicals, introductions, interviews, all that stuff. And then the next Tuesday, so a week after I was drafted, I was down in Florida without a car, didn't know anybody, in a hotel, kind of on my own really for the first time, like fully on my own. And that was a whirlwind experience because you're figuring out the complex, you're figuring out, I'd never been around somebody that spoke Spanish before. And now I have a lot of Dominican teammates that don't speak very good English, and so how do I communicate with them? So it was a learning curve, but they did a really good job with me of kind of working me into it. I'd thrown a pretty good amount of innings that summer, or that spring in season, and so I was a starter, but kind of going like 2 to 3 innings, threw a couple outings down in Florida, and then went to short season from there, and finished out the season, and then just kind of got it rolling from there.
Yeah, walk me through and it kind of depends on the guy, because some people's paths are a little bit smoother and easier, but for you, walk me through the path it took you to get to the show. Because debut, what was the actual debut date? Do you remember it off the top of your head?
I could be a little off. I want to say it was May 12th, 2018.
I thought you'd be able to pull that. I thought you'd be
able to pull that. I know every I'm really bad with dates. Like, I'm surprised I even remember my own birthday half the time. But I don't know how close I was. I think I'm right, May 12th.
Okay.
Let's go.
Yeah,
I was right. All right, so May 12th, 2018. So the win, or the gap in the minor leagues there was, got drafted in 14, kind of had an up and down minor league career. Started out good, made the all-star team for the league that short season. Next year, got off to a horrendous start in Frederick. Like, I was easily the worst pitcher because I skipped low A and went straight to high A. And that's a pretty big adjustment from, short season. So I was terrible for the first half. And I thought they were going to release me like that season. Fortunately, they didn't. Because the second half, I had a pretty big turnaround and actually got moved up to Double A for the back end of the season. Pitched well in the playoffs there. That was really fun. Really cool team, really cool experience. Then had a not so great year in Double A the next year because we were tinkering with some stuff. That's a hard place to tinker with stuff. Had a bounce back year afterwards. Ended up getting protected that off season, and then in 2018 made my debut.
Yeah, once you get protected, I feel like that's when it becomes a lot more real.
Yeah,
because you're just you're one injury or one type of roster move away from getting at least a cup of tea, a cup of coffee up there.
I was terrified when the deadline for that came too, because you just don't you have no idea what's going to happen. It feels like draft day all over again, where I mean, you see guys that get exposed to the Rule 5 draft that had no business being there, but for whatever business logistic reason it happens. And when I did get that call, I think I was probably more relieved on that day than I was when I got drafted, just because when you get drafted, you have 30 teams that might take you. When you're looking to get protected, you're literally waiting for a decision from one team. And then the Rule 5 draft is probably a whole different can of worms. But that was a really relieving phone call. And I actually had like a little pump fake on my actual debut, because I got called up the week before I actually made my debut in Boston, and didn't pitch. Freezing cold. I remember Chris Sale against Dylan Bundy. It was like 30 degrees, snow, sleet, nasty wind, in Boston. And these dudes are out there with no undershirt, short sleeves. Like I remember thinking, like, I might be in the wrong place then, because I'm not doing that. I did get up to get hot that game. Bundy ended up getting out of the inning, so I wasn't needed. And then I was optioned the next day. They, kind of needed a fresh arm, which was me. Ended up not needing it. Got optioned, and they told me that day, hey, be ready because we have a doubleheader against the Rays next week. And that was on a Sunday. So the doubleheader was on a Saturday, which is when I actually made my debut.
Okay,
that was
awesome.
That was pretty cool.
How did you feel about, because this happens for a lot of guys, how do you feel about that limbo of you got hot, didn't get into game, you get optioned, but you haven't pitched in game in how long had that been? Because you got called up from AAA.
Yep.
And then you got to wait, a full week before you get optioned?
Yeah. They did a good job leading up to that with communication, because I think we were in Syracuse a few days before, and they basically told me, hey, like, we're going to bang your start. We're going to have you throw, like, an extended bullpen. There's a chance they're going to need you in a few days, so stay ready for it. But if you don't, then we've shuffled the rotation to where you'll pitch on that same day no matter what. So they planned pretty well in advance. And I know a lot of guys don't get that luxury. But as a starter, it was kind of easier. I think we had an off day mixed in there. It was early in the year, so it was terrible weather everywhere at that point. I think there was some winter storm coming through. So we did have some flexibility. But that helped me, I think, kind of just settle in and try to make it somewhat normal. I hadn't been out of the bullpen, I don't think ever up until that point. So sitting in Fenway in the bullpen was a little different than, what I normally would have seen from the dugout.
Sure, you had a little bit of juice. What stadium did you debut in?
Camden Yards.
Okay, so do you think, do you remember what your peak velo was in your debut?
Not super hard.
Do you think Fenway would have boosted it a little bit?
I probably, although I don't think I could feel anything from head to toe.
Yeah.
I think I had so much adrenaline I didn't care. But looking back at it now, like, and still talking to my family about it now, they're like, that was the most miserable day that I've ever had on a baseball field, because just how, like, the conditions were so rough.
Yeah.
Again, I couldn't have cared less. I had a uniform on and I was sitting in Fenway Park. Like,
was your family there for that too?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So they got to sit in it and not get to see.
Yeah. So they were kind of bummed about that, but I think it was still a cool thing, and they got to see Boston, Boston's an awesome city, so that was fun too.
That's awesome. All right, and then from there, you've only played for 3 orgs? What was the process like? I mean, I know there was up and down with the big leagues with Baltimore. Yep. Take me through kind of that, and then obviously you had a short stint with Miami, and then the Rays from there.
Yeah, so I was a starter in 18. I had, I was up, I would say, a good amount of 2018, and got a pretty good handful of starts under my belt during that time, and so I started to kind of progress and get a little better. Had a pretty rough initial intake to the big leagues, which is not normal, or which is not uncommon. It is normal. Made some adjustments and had a pretty good back end. And then 2019, we had a complete overhaul of the staff because the Orioles were, we weren't that great at that time. Our record was not very good. So we got a new manager, a new GM, new pitching coach, pretty much a new across-the-board staff. And so going into that season, spring training, I think I had a couple starts. I don't even remember if they were great or not, but kind of got moved into that long relief role. Velo was trending up, started throwing a little harder at that point. Just probably, I know I'm going to be throwing 2 to 3 innings at a time rather than 4 to 6, hopefully closer to 6, maybe more. So Velo ticked up a little bit. Did not have a good year that year. Actually, take that back. Where I shifted was in season because that was 19. My first start in 19 was probably my most memorable 2-week baseball stint. I got to pitch opening day in Yankee Stadium, 2 innings. That was really cool. And then I had anybody that's probably kept up with my career knows this. I got pulled during a no-hitter. My first start in 2019 through 6 1/3 innings. That's still that was kind of a rough thing. I think it was, pitch count wise, all that stuff, trying to play the long game for the season. But
yeah, looking back at it now, I'm sure you're like, arm was fine. Like,
I couldn't believe that. There's pictures, there's videos out there to see my response, but that was pretty wild.
How old were you then?
20. I think I was still 24.
Okay.
Maybe I was 25 at that point.
I was going to say, still young enough to be a prospect for them to keep it easy. Yeah. I was going to say, if you had some tenure there, I would have just.
Well, and I remember in between innings, our pitching coach came over to me, and I was through 6 innings at that point. You kind of know, all right, I'm doing a little something here. He was like, "How you feeling, man? You all right?" I was like, "I'm fine." He said, "Okay, just making sure." And I thought it was kind of weird that he asked me that because I was like, I'm at 65 or 70 pitches. I'm fine. And then I got pulled the next hitter into the inning. So it was the right motive. It just kind of in the moment that sucked. Looking back, it sucked just because dang, what if I could have finished that? That would have been really cool. But and quite honestly, from that point, there was a lot of downhill. I don't know. Well, I was doing a lot of tweaking on off-speed stuff, mechanical stuff, trying to just kind of figure some stuff out because that was about the time when the velo trend really started coming in. I started throwing a little bit harder, but across the league, velo was king.
Oh, yeah.
It's still king, but it was especially king at that point. And so as velo went up, so did the ERA. And then in turn, the up and down kind of started more and really continued over the next few years because that year it was just options were on the table, so those are going to get utilized. The next year was COVID, and that was a chaotic year in itself. Very inconsistent pitching schedule, so performance wasn't great. And then 2020 was my last option year.
Okay.
And so that offseason, I got DFA'd and ended up signing with Tampa.
What year was this?
Oh,
because that's in Tampa, but that's with the Orioles.
So that was probably my it was just a funny thing. It was embarrassing in the moment, but that was rough because
whose helmet is that?
So the backstory of it is, and the videos of this are also out there. We were out there just throwing a football around, and we had Jace Peterson on our team, and Jace was a legit athlete. He was the real deal and a D1 quarterback and everything. So he's kind of letting him rip a little bit. And we're out there in Tampa running routes, just messing around, getting some conditioning in before everything gets going. And he throws one, and I don't look up until the last minute, and it slips right through my hands and hits me in my eye. Not my best moment, not my most athletic moment. I've learned to catch a football better since then. But some of the veteran guys that was sitting, I don't even know why an LSU helmet was in the clubhouse. But during the game, they brought it out and said, you got to wear this for 2 innings. So
was this your rookie season, or was this the year after?
That was my rookie year.
Who are you talking to right there? Or who's next to you?
Cedric Mullins.
That is Mullins.
Yeah.
Wow.
And ironically, he's with Tampa now.
Yeah.
We were teammates in Baltimore for, my whole time in there. And, he's I think I'm actually probably telling the story a little bit right there, too.
Yeah. Either that or you're acting like a tiger. I can't tell.
Yeah, it's I'll let you be the judge of which one it is. But, no, that was that was one of those things where you got to kind of just laugh it off because it was I do remember actually I remember the organization they were mad at me obviously, but I think they were a little mad that even got released because it was so early on before everything. They're like, wait, you're not supposed to be filmed. It was kind of a weird little thing, but
oh well,
but
it's not the worst thing that's ever happened.
No, it's
be all right.
Play it off. Maybe that was the problem. I don't know. Maybe, but I did pitch the next day after that.
So you're fine.
Yeah. No, I threw. Yeah. I think it was like 5 or 6 innings. Ironically against Tampa, and then signed with them as a free agent in 21. Minor league contract. Went to Durham. I had an opt-out. Tampa was awesome. That's a great organization. They were great to me. 2021, opt-out, like you said, went to Miami, got traded over there after the opt-out, pitched with them for a few months, and, man, I was settled in. I was feeling good and thought that everything, up until I had the worst game of my career in Miami against Colorado, but before that game, that tanked my stats. If you look at it, it's totally skewed because of that. I think I doubled my ERA just from that game, and then a couple weeks later got DFA'd, and then went back to Tampa and kind of went up and down with them for the rest of that season.
How was Durham overall? I know a lot of guys playing in Durham.
It was awesome.
And that's where you played with Zombro.
Yeah.
What year was that?
21.
21?
Yeah.
Because he was his good year was 21 or 22?
I think
it was 21, right?
I think
I can't remember.
It might have been
2019.
Yeah, because we had COVID, and I remember he came up and he threw well. I say to this day, we had a lot of team trauma that year. Yeah. And that was the year that everything went down with that, and that kind of started everything. But I that was a really special group of guys because when all that happened with him, and then even spoiler and fast forward, when everything happened with me, man, that group of guys made it through the thick of it together, and that's kind of where we kind of adopted the team motto of keep going, and that just really that's still something that stuck with me today. But it's just that was a really special group of guys on that team.
Yeah. So Rummy, I know you've probably told this story, I don't know, thousands of times, but 2021.
21, yeah.
When did you first start to feel like something was off with your health?
Yeah, so, my wife had been telling me for years that something was going on because I had this cough. It was a really deep cough that just wasn't right. I didn't think anything of it. I was just all right, whatever. And then progressively through 21, it really started when I got traded over to Miami, but I just kind of felt a heaviness. I was getting winded a little bit easier. And then it sounds simple, but it really stuck with my family. When I would tie my shoes, I would bend over and my face would turn beet red. And I didn't think anything of it because it was so progressive. But they were that's really not right. And so all of that culminated and came to a head during the Colorado game. I remember I did a spot start on Sunday, and they told me the Saturday that day before that I probably was going to. Man, I remember waking up that day, and we had that was during the time in California where there was the big forest fires going on, and so the smoke from that came over to Colorado, and it was a really weird scene. There was a smoke warning through the city, so breathing was tough. You're at an altitude, so you get a double whammy there. And I remember I felt like I had like 150 pound just like backpack on the whole time, like weighing me down, couldn't breathe. And I woke up that Sunday and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Yeah. Like, I don't feel like I can get a good breath, let alone pitch well. And I know when it really hit me was, it was the first inning. I gave up. I had a runner on first, had a ground ball off Charlie Blackmon hit that should have been a double play. And if you look at it, you're probably just like, oh, you just didn't get to the bag. I should have gotten to the bag.
Yeah.
And I didn't get there quick enough, and that would have gotten me out of the inning. Gave up a 2-run home because I completely gassed just from running to first base. And I got absolutely shelled afterwards. And that's when, even hearing now from my family, that's when they said, like, on TV, like Devin, my wife Devin, said she got like texts from people I'd played with and friends who were watching the game saying, like, is David okay? Like, he looks wrong, like something's off. And so I felt it, me being a prideful dude. I was like, I'm fine. It's probably just like COVID or something that I don't know about, and I just haven't, maybe somehow it just got missed. And it wasn't COVID, because it just continued to get worse and worse until really when I got back to, there were a lot of like episodes and stuff that happened and specifics, but I remember when I was in Durham doing some conditioning. We were in Charlotte, actually right up the road, and I like couldn't do my 90-foot sprints. Like, I mean, completely gassed, hands on my knees after just a few, not even a few, maybe 2. I was like, I need to go to the doctor, but I don't even know what I say. You know what I mean? And so I kind of pushed it off and said, all right, when we get to the off season, I'll go in. I don't know what I'm going to say, but I'll at least go to the doctor and see what they have to tell me. So.
Did you go in the off season, or did you have to go earlier?
I was planning to go in the off season,
okay.
And then I was looking to make an appointment a couple weeks after the season ended, and that actually got sped up because I think it was like the second day I was home. I was bored, athlete, motivated, driven, all that. I was like, I'm just gonna go run around, do a little something, and I think I made it probably like 100 yards out of my door, like just trying to go for a little jog. And I like couldn't do it. Like, I'm talking hands on my knees, gasping for air. And I was like, I don't know what's going on with me. Like, I'm reasonably in shape, I would think. And then that's when I was like, I might have to go like the emergency room if this doesn't get better. I'm going to give it another day or two. And then the next morning, I coughed up a little bit of blood in the shower. And that was kind of all right, we got to get over there right away. And we have a hospital right up the road, a mile down the road from my house. So we were so, I don't want to say non-concerned, but just it didn't even cross our mind something would be wrong, because my wife went to work. Like, it was like 8 o'clock, and I was like, all right, I got to go to the emergency room and get this looked at. And she was like, okay, just call me. I'll be at work. Let me know if anything's going on. I get to the emergency room, and I look otherwise normal. Like, knowing now what we know, I was not normal. But even to the point where the nurse that was there was like, are you okay? Like, do you really need to be admitted? And then he like took my blood pressure, did the vitals, and he was like, okay, yeah, we need to get you back to a room. Just get settled in. We'll be in a couple minutes. Come to find out that I was like, borderline like heart attack level blood pressure. And so we get back there, vitals are crazy, doctor comes in. At one point it was kind of like, have you been feeling anxious? I'm like, I'm not anxious, it's not that. And end up doing some blood work, talking them into it. That comes back with some high markers. We didn't know anything about what that meant. So they were like, we're going to go and get a scan now and do an x-ray. We're like, okay. And I had called my wife at this point and said, hey, like, I don't know what's going on, but I think you might need to be here. I think this is probably important. And so I go back and get an x-ray, and I don't know what I'm looking at. He's like, all right, you see this big shadow in your chest? And we're like, yeah. He said, that's not supposed to be there. So he's like, we're and I think at this point it was literally like out of a movie where you kind of like zone out and you hear like the fading voices, because I was like thinking a million things of what this could be, but had no idea. He was like, we're going to go do a CT scan to get a little bit more picture on everything. So I go in and I get the CT scan, and we hadn't even gotten the results yet. This was like our moment where we were like, this is bad. The nurse who originally took me in came by the room and said, hey, just want you guys to know, like, we're praying for you. You're going to get through this. And I looked at Devin and I was like, what are they talking about? Like, what's wrong with me? And then the doctor came in a couple minutes later, and I still have the picture on my phone from it. I mean, just a giant, it was about a pineapple-sized tumor sitting in my chest. And then
Pineapple-sized tumor?
Yeah.
Holy
yeah. So then everything kind of came into focus at that point, and everything from the Colorado game to even going back years in advance, kind of looking back at it now, I had this weird, it looked like almost a heat rash on my back. We can never figure it out. This was in probably 2017, so 4 years before the actual diagnosis. We couldn't figure out what was causing this. Come to find out, spoiler alert, we did find out it was cancer. Yeah. And so this type of cancer, that's one of the early indications that it's going on, is it shows up in that rash. So that made sense, and now I don't have that anymore, which is nice. Yeah. But yeah, so we, that was scary in itself, getting that diagnosis. We didn't know what we were looking at. I had to get basically a specialized unit, cardiac arrest unit, for the ambulance to take me to the main hospital in Greenville, because they said I was down so bad. They were like, you could stroke out during this ambulance ride. You could have a heart attack. Like, you literally are like on the verge of not being able to just live. And then I said, joking around, because that's what I do. I was like, so that little run jog thing I tried to do yesterday probably wasn't good. They're like, you did what? Yeah. I was like, yeah.
Dude, even the ones before that you said, like.
And they said literally anything over the last month that got your heart, they said you were flipping a coin every time you got your heart rate above baseline, that you were going to die.
It's probably a good thing that you were, other than the cancer, that you were relatively healthy.
Yeah.
Because that.
And that's exactly what my oncologist said. He said, your blessing and your curse is that you're a professional athlete. Yeah. He said that you are in such good shape, because if you weren't, you would definitely be dead right now. But because you were, we didn't get to catch this sooner and maybe prevent a little bit of the difficulty you've had.
Yeah, you're not thinking worst case scenario through through those previous 4 to 5 years. You're not thinking, I could have cancer. You're just it's just like the aches and pains of being a professional athlete, and just like the what comes with the travel and with the sport itself. Yeah, so
absolutely,
man, that's insane. Pineapple sized too. Yeah. I can't even imagine that.
Dude, it's still hard for me to imagine it.
That is
like, and it's weird too, because like my sternum, I didn't realize how like puffed out it was, because I mean, everything like in the picture I have, you can see that my heart was literally shifted into my stomach, and like,
where was it located specifically?
It
like
was
right
straight
in the middle?
Smack dab in the middle. So it I think it went from like here down to like here.
And were you passing physicals? Did you have to do many physicals?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that was so weird about this. Like, this was also, supposed to compromise. I mean, you got to think, a pineapple sitting in there, you can't breathe very well, and I couldn't breathe very well. And then I went in to do the lung test to make sure, you have to do all sorts of diagnostic stuff to make sure, hey.
Did you like a stress test?
Where you, like, I passed the stress test perfectly fine. My lung capacity was 100%, and they were like actually more even with all this. So it was just a really crazy scenario that I think, and this is why, looking back, like, I don't at all fault the nurse when I walked in for kind of being like, what are you doing here? Because I looked normal. I was acting normal outside of, physical exertion. Like, I had no idea that anything was really going on. I mean, I had, like, again, you chalk it up to, like, travel or pitching, but, like, my back constantly was hurting because come to find out that like my rib heads were literally being pushed out of where they were supposed to be. And you just never assume that it's going to be the worst case thing, but that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, I guess that's why Ethan's having trouble with the correctives still.
Yeah,
you got a lot of you got like 5 years of compensation going on.
We're trying progress. To clear as much as I'm just like at this point I'm just like a broken toy that we're putting back together.
We're making some progress. So obviously in that moment like that, getting the diagnosis doesn't change. Doesn't really change the process in the moment. You still have to go through the treatment. And I feel like the treatment is where things really start to like kick your ass a little bit. How did you change as a person before the diagnosis to after and during the treatment and now after you finish the treatment? Like I know that going through that type of situation changes who you were before and who you are now.
I mean, one thing I think you hear a lot, like you realize priorities and what's really important. I think that you just start to value things in a different way. Like if we would have sat here in 2021 before I knew this, talking about my professional career, I would have probably prefaced it with, I mean, numbers aren't great, and now I'm like, I don't care. Like I got to pitch in the big leagues, and are there things I wish would have been better? Absolutely. But like, you shift that focus on, wow, that's a really great accomplishment. I'm proud of what I did. And I'm going to not focus on the negative things that might have been there. I'm going to try to focus on the positive things. And so I think that outlook applies to family and relationships. It applies to the way I view work and just general outlook in life. You realize that there's bigger things going on than what it may feel like in the moment. And then I also think one thing I think taking away that sounds kind of weird to say, I guess, is like toughness isn't always loud. I think that you can hear a lot of people who, like, God, I see it so much in pitching now. Like you see the like pounding your chest, throwing your glove. Like there's an element of that that's toughness. But like I saw 85-year-old frail women sitting in that room going through treatment, like, I mean, just tougher than nails, and they don't have to do anything except be there, and so I think that's an approach that like I kind of carry with me now, not just in baseball but in general. Like you don't have to talk about or flaunt what you're bringing to the table, whether that be toughness, whether that be confidence. Like internally what you have is more important than externally how that's conveyed. And I think that shows up. We talked about this last week. Like I threw, or maybe it was earlier this week, I threw a bullpen to with no catcher. I think it was a 9-pocket. Like we got some really good work in. And I think that it's easy in those moments to get frustrated and be like, God, this sucks, like to make a big fit about it. But like at the end of the day, it's like, I know we got better from that. I don't need to project that, talk about it. I also don't need to talk about the negative sides of it either. It just is what it is. We just got to make the most of this right now.
Got to. I think the guys and I told you, Josh Tomlin was a guy that I worked with like when I first got into coaching, and he was like, dude, if I got to throw into a brick wall, I'll throw into a brick wall.
Make it happen.
And he had a 10-year career, 10-plus years of quality baseball. And I think that's where, yes, we have way more resources now, so guys should be able to access those. But at the end of the day, like you can get it done.
That's it.
With your training if you don't have like a perfect setup.
Yeah.
So
what you make it.
And I love what you talked about with like the confidence, like being loud versus just kind of behind the scenes. Do you feel like, and I always have this debate with other people about being vulnerable in the right circumstances is actually something that can build confidence, because a lot of people feel like, oh, as a man, you're like, if I'm vulnerable, like I'm weak, or I look weak, and it's like, well, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. So how did you approach the fact that you're a big leaguer in rooms with people 3 times your age going through stuff similar to you, worse, less, whatever that circumstance was? How do you approach that, and how did that affect you now that you're kind of past all of the treatment and all of that process?
Yeah. I mean, I think that if you don't find a way to humble yourself, life's going to find a way to humble you. And I think that that was a prime example where, like you said, and even when I would sit in rooms and talk with these people, they would be like, so, you get to know people pretty well. And they'd be like, so, what's your story? I was like, well, I was pitching in the big leagues a few months ago, and now I'm here. And they're like, wait, what? And so it's like you kind of start to realize quickly that there are certain things that will bring you down or bring you up to the same place as other people. You know what I mean? Like I guess to be more clear with that is these people might have gone through their whole life and it looked completely different. But you realize in those moments that we're more alike than we're more different. Even though I played Major League Baseball, even though I was coming from that place, I'm no better than the person who had been working as an accountant or working as an office manager or, an engineer who's sitting in that same room as me. Like, we have a common experience in that moment that we can really draw together, and you need to draw together on. And the only way, to your point, that you're going to be able to do that is to be open about things. It's the same reason that even though it's hard and even though sometimes it's uncomfortable to, like, tell aspects and facets of my story and what I've been through, that's what it's about. That's the whole reason that all this happened to begin with. I don't love that, I didn't have the 10-year illustrious career to be able to, tell people like, wow, look how impressive I am. But I think that there's things about this that have made me thankful in a lot of ways. And I think a lot of that is just from being open and being willing to say, okay, I have to humble myself a little bit to say, even though this isn't what I wanted, because maybe I thought a little bit too highly of myself or had goals that are not bad. It's not bad to have those goals, but that's just because I didn't accomplish it doesn't mean I failed. It just means that the story that I have, this is it. Now let's make the most of it.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that people have to go through these specific hardships to have that new kind of like focus on life.
Yeah.
But I think your arc is important to go through some stuff. And obviously you've gone through much harder than probably most of us in this room.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of guys that are going to be watching this video or looking at this from afar don't need to take on that mindset of I gotta rush. Like I gotta pick up the pace. Like, yes, everyone's short on time, but if you rush that time, you're gonna miss out on things. So being able to slow it down, focus on what's important, and be able to almost like in professional baseball at a younger age in your 20s, you almost feel like you're really self-centered. You're focused on kind of what's going on with yourself, but being able to put something in to something that's bigger than yourself, whether that's, for you, I know that's faith is a big thing. For other people, there's other pieces to their life that are bigger than themselves. And I think no matter what you choose, you do need to be involved with something that kind of takes you away from that self-centered focus, because it allows you to see things from a different scope.
It's figuring out, I know people call it the why. And everybody's why might look a little bit different. Like, some people it's putting food on the table for their family. Some people it's, I wouldn't encourage this, but like the pride that comes with being at whatever level you are. Like, figuring out the why that motivates you to keep going day by day. Maybe evaluate, is it a good why? But figure out what it is that drives you, that motivates you, and lean into it. Like, don't let it be something that cripples you to the point where you're putting, like we talked about earlier, so much pressure, but let it be a motivating factor that inspires you to keep going on the days when you don't want to wake up and, go to the gym, your body's a little tight, on the days when you have work to do, but you're thrown to a 9-pocket or a brick wall. Like, you got to have some reason that, and that's hard to do. Like, I'll be the first to tell you, like, whether it be in college, early on in pro ball, like, I was that selfish. Like, I look back and I'm like, God, I wish I was a better teammate to some of the guys around me. I wish I understood things a little bit better. But we got to that point eventually. Like,
yeah, it's hard to do that at that age, man. You don't
so
know any.
hard.
You don't know any better. So,
and you're very resistant a lot of times to when people do, because sometimes people will come and tell you things, and it's not always brought about in the right way. Like, you have to understand the, I guess, like the psychology. Like, if you come in aggressive and hard at somebody, especially in that position, it is shut down immediately. So giving an opportunity to like gently approach it and say, hey, like, there might be a better way to go about this. I've been there. I've done it. I know where you're at. And this is where I'm at right now. Like you said, being a little bit older, I want to impart some of these things that I've learned to where maybe somebody doesn't have to go through some of the uncomfortability that maybe I went through. Maybe somebody's a better teammate than I was, or figured out some facet that I've learned in, 10 plus years in pro ball that maybe they can incorporate into year one.
Yeah.
I
think it's hard for guys to see the benefit of that, especially at a younger age. It's like, how does me being a better teammate, how does me working harder, or how does me, other than working harder, but
right.
how does that get me to my end goal? How does that benefit me?
Yeah.
And it really doesn't take, and I don't think I took that approach in college either, but it doesn't take more effort. It just takes a decision.
Yeah.
And I'm going to steal this from my shrink, but we've been talking about a choice point, having a choice point, right? And if you have these values and traits that you want to instill in yourself, it's not extra effort to put into those. It's a simple decision of I'm going to choose this route, whether it's uncomfortable or not, whether it's stressful or not, because those are the traits that I want to possess, and I'm going to keep working towards those.
Yeah.
And it's just a constant battle between that, but it really isn't extra effort.
No.
It's in your head. You make a quick decision and you just go with it.
Yeah.
Instead of thinking about what's the worst case scenaririo that pops up if I decide to take this approach. So how does all that shit that you went through, how does that influence the kind of official unofficial comeback into professional baseball, into just being an athlete again?
Yep. I mean, really, like, kind of to go forward, I had completely let baseball go. I had moved on. I had started coaching. I was taking classes at Clemson to finish up my biochem degree. I was so ready to move on. Sure. Yeah, it was a blast.
As a mid-20-year-old taking biochem classes again.
I definitely walked in feeling old, looking old, all the above. I think the teachers gave me a little cushion because I was older, but I mean, I had let it go. I had moved on, and it was this weird turning point where I think subconsciously I always wanted it to happen. I wanted to kind of go out on my own terms and not because I got sick. And we actually, the high school team I'm coaching with, got to play at the Braves Stadium. And we were driving down there, me and my wife, and she was like, "How are you feeling?" I said, I don't really know. I said, because when I get on this field, I'm going to know, is this door closed or is this door still cracked open? And it was so weird because I got there, I still, to like the same place when I got traded to Miami, my first game was in Atlanta. It was the 4th of July. Pretty cool. I have a picture. I was standing next to, I think, one of the guys, Stephen O'Kurt.
Yeah, he's with Nico, yeah.
Yeah, so we had just gotten over there right around, I think he might have been there a little bit before, but we were standing next to each other right behind third base, looking out. It's a really cool backdrop and everything. I don't even know how it happened. Maybe I did this without thinking about it. I stood there for our national anthem in the exact same spot. And during the national anthem, I was like,
that door's wide open,
it's
man.
not done.
Yeah.
And like you said, faith is a big component for me. So I just kind of prayer to myself, kind of talked to God a little bit and said, all right, if this is something that you want, if this is going to happen, you just got to make it abundantly clear to one person, and that's old wifey. Yeah. And I didn't say anything on the ride home. I was waiting for her to kind of bring it up, and she never really brought it up. She just said, it's not done.
Yeah, she was watching the whole thing.
Yep. So from that moment, that was the spring of 25.
Yep.
Or is that right? Yeah, spring of 25. And I had finished treatment. It had been, God, me and my wife did a whole podcast just breaking down the whole treatment journey. So that's a whole ordeal in itself. But we finally got to the point of remission, and I actually had a scan yesterday that everything's all clear. So we're right about the 18-month mark now, which is, that's a
really, couple clean scans in a row, right?
Yeah, that's
when was your first clean scan?
It was the first true full clean scan was November of 24.
Okay.
And we think that there might have been, the way the treatment was set up, basically I had to get to a clean scan and then do a little bit more treatment.
Yeah.
We think that it was probably, looking back now, a clean scan in August, the one before, but I had to do a little bit more treatment. So that's why I say it's kind of like the 18-month mark if you're including that. But all that to say, and after that clean scan, I was like, man, let's just start getting back into shape. I started walking around my neighborhood, and I then was like, all right, I'm going to start doing a little jogging, a little conditioning, just trying to start building up some endurance. Did that, got to January, and I was like, all right, let's start getting in the gym. And you talk about being humbled. I'm out here doing air squats, feeling like I have, because I didn't have any muscle. So I'm I'm going to the gym, and I'm surrounded by meatheads who are pushing around 5 times my body weight, and I'm over here doing air squats, just trying to hold my own. And
yeah, but they haven't thrown 95.
That's
before,
true.
So.
That's true.
We're pushing the big leagues.
That's right. So we're working our way back.
How quickly did you feel like stuff started, the physicality started to come back? Do you feel like that was a quick process?
It was slow, and then all at once.
Okay.
It was really slow for me to get one thing, I have a Garmin watch, and so I can track HRV, all the health metric stuff, and it was really, really slow. Everything was still leveled off, and then it was just in a 2-week span, everything went way up. And
I feel like body
off.
Comp was slow, or was it pretty easy to build muscle back?
Once I got into it, I had to kind of get a little baseline, and then it happened pretty fast. Yeah. And that was right about the time when everything started. I'd started playing catch and doing stuff when we were at the Brave Stadium with that game, and I was like, all right, I'm going to start stepping on the gas a little bit just to see what I can do. I don't know what this is going to look like. And sure enough, it turned into, long toss and then bullpens. And I actually got to start throwing live BP against our high school hitters, which was really fun when they start running their mouth about me being old and can't get them out. They learn.
Oh yeah.
That's easy. So that was pretty fun to kind of build back up. And then I was coaching a summer travel ball team, and actually on my birthday last year in 2025 was when we basically decided, high point. We got some video, got some data, TrackMan stuff, sent it out, and that's when we got the call hey, we'd like to have you come over. And so we got that ball rolling.
It was like riding a bike, man.
It was so weird because I remember throwing bullpens, doing everything, and I was stuck. I could not get above. You could have had a gun to my head and said, I will pull the trigger if you cannot get above 90. And I would have been dead on the spot because it just could not happen. And so my first outing was in Lancaster. We went on a road trip up there, and it was a 4 a.m. bus, and I didn't care. Man, I'm getting to play baseball again. Exactly what I said. That perspective shift. It's indie ball. We're getting after it. But, man, I get up there, and I told guys, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be throwing 85 or I could be throwing 95. I have no idea. And I think the first pitch I threw in that game was 94. I was like, I don't know how I did that. I think I punched out a few guys.
We got to find that again.
Yeah, I know. We're still working on that. It's in the tank. Maybe
that was in game. We've gotten a 3 without hitters in the box.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we're gonna get there. We're gonna make it happen. But, and man, that was cool because I'd been there for all of probably 5 days, and it was the investment that team had around kind of the comeback to baseball was really special to me. I remember I got done with the inning. I think it was 3 up, 3 down. I might have had a walk in there or something. I don't know. But I'm walking off the field, and some of the guys are kind of teared up, or manager, Jamie comes up, gives me a huge hug, and he's like, man, you feel good? I said, yeah. He said, you good? You want to be done? I said, no, you told me I was throwing 2 innings. I'm going back out there. And finished out the second inning, and that was just, like you said, riding a bike, and we got right back into it, and rolled through the summer, had what I think was a good year in High Point.
Oh, yeah.
And
almost 30 innings, 22 hits.
Yeah.
Punched out about 30 as well. Like,
yeah, I mean,
that's what you want.
Yeah, and through all that, I definitely felt like my stuff wasn't quite right. I mean, I was getting back in. Man, it was.
That's gonna take a while.
Yeah, the my arms getting back into shape. My hips are a little tight on different days, especially running on turf out there. Like, that kind of hits you in a different way. So, it was just a process, working through it, getting back into everything. It was a blast. There were moments where the indie ball life hits you, and you're kind of looking around, just like, dang, like, if I didn't love baseball, man, this would be a lot tougher. But it was really fun to get back there, and then that's kind of getting connected with you guys.
Yeah. You played with, how many guys were on that team? Blair and
Cotter, Wayne Scott.
Yeah.
I know Hollis Fanning. I actually went to the same high school as him, and so we kind of knew each other, but he was in that league on a different team. So there's a lot of guys over here that got connected. But we got kind of the back end of the season, and I was just like, hey, and I actually think I might have called Zombro too.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, man, I kind of need to get back. Like, I'm not where I should be, or I'm not where I'd like to be going forward, but I think we have a good template to work with here. And I talked to Blair, like, do you think that coming in-house or, like, working with Tread would be good? And they all said, yeah. And I was like, all right, let's get the ball rolling then. And so I think it was, like, this last week or second to last week is when I, got the call, like, did the intake stuff. And I think I was throwing a mocap probably, like, 3 days after the season ended to kind of get a baseline. And
you sent me some really video from High Point.
Hey,
couldn't really,
let me tell you something.
See anything.
I Flow Sports is good for streaming, but for some reason that just was not working with us that day.
That's fine. Yeah, we got you in here for like that end of season mocap. I think you got up to 88.
Yeah,
maybe
it was
89,
bad.
And
it was bad.
And you were trying to cook.
Yeah.
And at that time too, like we're thinking, okay, we got to take what we have. We know that we were kind of in between of, can he do what he did before?
Yeah.
And before was a little bit more of like kind of a lateral tilt load, more over the top type of move. And when you came in, you were throwing from a lower slot, taking advantage of the angles that you were creating. It was like, okay, let's just build off of this for now and just try to get the output up and clean up some of the patterns there. And then I think as we started going through it, we're like, we can work with this, but I think you're going to be capped at like 90, 92 from this slot.
Yeah.
But I think there's more in the tank.
Yep.
And the key was, and you said it too, is like, I just got to like it's going to take me a while to knock off the rust.
Yeah.
And that's kind of when we pulled Ethan into the mix for the lifting side and the correctives, like just kind of getting you back to baseline with the lower half, upper half wise, just opening up space in the shoulder and in the rib cage. And you said like you had one of your ports was on your right side.
Yeah, I had it sitting right there. So
because they can't do it over the heart, right?
No.
I was going to say that option would have been nice so that you could have some range back there. But and that's been something we've been battling is like, and you never were a super deep flip up guy, even when you were throwing hard. But the timing of it was a little bit better. It looked a little less gritty and. Through the fall, it seemed like that was one of the biggest issues was not just finding more output because you weren't reaching your max potential of letting it eat, but also just finding space behind the body with flip up because it was super shallow flip up, getting really pushy. So we just kind of, I feel like we broke it down between the upper half and the lower half early on and worked on, and it's something that I've done with guys, like we talked about it with MT in the last podcast that we did of like separating the upper half from the lower half when we're building up. To give you time to figure some things out and then being able to push the intensity from there. And I felt like that helped a little bit. And, we pushed, I think the first time we hit some numbers we were happy with were like November, December, you did like the little drop step at 90.
Yeah.
We're like, okay.
I started to wonder if I was going to get to 90.
Yeah. And I knew being a gamer, getting into an environment that you had not felt in 5 years, right? Everyone says this about our pro day is like it's more adrenaline than they felt in a long time.
Yeah, and
like
that's
very
true.
Close to like debut-ish type of adrenaline. And I knew, okay, if we can see a 91 in pins, I think we'll hit a 93 in pro day live. And that's pretty much what it was. Like you sat pretty much 92, 93. I don't know if you got a 4, you got close.
I don't think so.
But the stuff looked good, and that wasn't even like our end. Our end goal was not that. And then we started to realize you can definitely get more into your previous move. So that's when we started to add in deload. We add in the pull downs. What would you pull down 5 ounce? 95 or 94?
I think I got like a 4.7.
So that was.
I think I wanted to claim a 5, but
I mean that was a lot better than before.
Yeah,
like in the fall it was like 91 was going to be our cap.
Yep.
And I was like, man, we got to get moving a little bit more. Added the 4 ounce in, get you moving a little bit more. Got the 97.
Yep.
And then a couple weeks ago, like you hit the 2. I might have the video that y'all can add in here too, post. But hit the 92 into the net.
Yeah.
And we've seen like the occasional dips, but I think that's more so you're a guy that's gone through a lot of trauma, and that's tough to be able to hold these peaks long term. Yeah. We're going to see a lot more valleys for you, and being able to come out of them is important. So I don't think that we've done anything, and Ethan may be able to say something slightly different, but the way we've treated your approach in the weight room and correctives is not much different than any other guys, just specifically for your situation. We didn't change anything because of your treatment, because of your diagnosis. Like you being clear and you having the baseline back to where you needed to be was a good spot. Now, if we started together in the beginning of 25, things are a lot different.
That'd be completely different.
I think that, your strength is, do you feel as strong, if not stronger than you've ever been?
Yeah. Strength's definitely back. And one thing to your point is there's been a lot of, I would say, mobility focus, but mobility under tension. And that's been really helpful for me because, like, for example, in high point, like, my left hip was just stiff. I think just that torque being put back on it had to kind of adapt to it. Yeah. So coming in, that was a little tight. And that was something.
And your block still sucks, so we're still trying to figure that out. But
hey, I got to rely on the strong legs if I can't do a good block.
I mean, we're getting there.
Maybe we're trying. I'll leave that part to you to tell me how to do it.
Yeah, we can do a breakdown after this.
Yeah. Be gentle in it because I know there's a lot of cleaning up we still got to do. But no, I mean we're getting the focus has been in the right places, and there's definitely the strength's being built back, the mobility's being built back. Now it's just a matter of seeing some fun numbers up there.
Yeah, I mean you showed some quality stuff in pro day, and I know with your history, your age, everything that's gone on, like teams know you can pitch. Yeah, they probably want to see a little bit more juice, just like they do with anybody that's trying to make a comeback. Yep. And I think that's the next step because we're set up with High Point again, possibly going to Mexico if that works out. You're going to get your innings, but instead of because what was your average velo this last year at High Point? 91?
Probably 91.
If we're averaging, it's a big jump to be 93, but if we're 92 to 93 on average, popping a 4 or 5 with your stuff, that gives us a good shot. Yeah, and I know you don't want anybody to give you another chance in affiliate ball just to be like the feel good story. Yeah, but if they do, we'll take advantage of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I've said it from the get go. Like, however I got to get there is however I got to get there. But once that opportunity comes, like we're gonna make the most
then it turns into like, no, this is a job still. Yeah, like, I'm trying to get out. So awesome, dude. Well, we got a pen. We got a pen in like 45 minutes to an hour, so we better get rolling. But that's all I got, man.
That's it.
Hell yeah. Well, thanks for watching, guys. We will see y'all next time.